very simple. Each miner has 3 minutes to pitch, while the 5 investors should go and give them $5 million of their virtual money. And then after we've heard each of the miners pitch, they'll have 7 minutes of Q&A from the investors. Then after that, I'll ask each of the 5 investors which is the most investable project and why, and the winner wins this lovely bottle of champagne. So without further ado, can I just invite
Thanks, man.
Peter Dembicki, President and CEO of Tier 1 Silver, to go and come to the stage.
Be kind. Good luck. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Still people here. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, judges. Thank you for having me. We are Tier 1 Silver. We are an aggressive exploration company looking for the next largest silver discovery in Peru. Some disclaimer to cover any forward-looking statements, which I am sure to make. So anytime you're investing in an exploration company, you want to invest in people first. Our technical team, our leadership of Ivan Bebic, Sean Wallace, and our technical team of Dave Smithson, Antonio Ribas, and Michael Hendrickson have been involved in multiple discoveries and multiple exits for shareholders time and time again. It is a key point to investing in the exploration business to reduce your risk. As I mentioned, Michael and Dave, both formerly of Newmont, so they're employing all the history and the expertise that they learned from the majors and applying it to a nimble, aggressive exploration company. Also Antonio Ribas, former chief head geologist at Newmont and head of geosciences at BHP. So here we are in Peru. We have 2 premier projects, Hurricane Silver and Curibaya. Curibaya is located in the south of Peru amongst the biggest giants, some of the biggest producers of Latin America with Cerro Verde, Tocopala, Quellaveco, and Cajone. Then there's a gap in the system, and they start up again in northern Chile. And for years, companies have been scanning this area looking for the next copper porphyry system, and yet to find it. When our geologists went out to explore, they did a huge screen of the entire coastline of Peru, and this came back as the #1 precious metals target on the list. So we acquired it, 17,000 hectare piece of land, in and amongst the giants, with Tocopala just 40 kilometers to our northwest. And since then, the majors have been coming back to this land in a big way, acquiring land all around our property. Now, you can't imagine us being so excited about such a boring looking slide, but when you go out and set out on rock samples with our geologists and they come back in the grades of 300,000 grams per ton silver and up to a kilo of gold, emanating over a 20 square kilometer footprint, it sure gives us the confidence and the enthusiasm to take that next step and get to do some channel sampling. So here we see the grades falling on our footprint all over our feeder structures, all over a 20 square kilometer region. So next up is our channel sampling and our targeting, and what we see here is high-grade samples, channel sampling 20 meters of 300 grams per ton silver. We are 14 holes into a 16-hole program, wrapping it up mid-December. Hole number 6, within 6 holes, we already intercepted a plus kilo intercept of 1 meter of 1.5 kilos, a part of 3.5 meters of 400 grams per ton silver. Again, our second project, Hurricane Silver, coming to the forefront. We acquired this from Newmont. It is a very exciting project, standalone project in and of itself. Again, we are Tier 1 Silver. We are looking for the big swing, the big world-class discovery.
Okay,
125 million shares out. Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry, but your 3 minutes is up, so I have to be as harsh to you as I'm going to be to the other 3 pitchers as well. Can we give a round of applause for Peter? That was a great presentation.
3 minutes, that's good.
And now, if you've got the 7 minutes, which is up on your timer now, we're now going to go for the 7 minutes of Q&A. I'm probably going to go along from you first, Richard, all the way along to you, Mark, for 1 question each, which you have for Peter. And if we then have any time left at the end of that 7 minutes, we go for some extra questions. So first, if I can go to you, Richard, if you've got 1 question you'd like to ask Peter, what would it be?
Peter, your market cap's 113 million. What's your resource and dollars per ounce, and the width of the ore body? or the width of the intersections average.
I missed the first half of the question. Sorry.
Your dollar per ounce silver value, how does that compare to 113 million?
So again, our valuation when we listed just in June, we were pre-drill, and we caught the tail end of $28 silver, and there was a lot of hype around it. I wish I could take claim for pegging any sort of share price or valuation, but really it comes with the volatility and the torquey nature of the silver investor and how excited people see. So again, I can't validate the valuation, how our share price trades, but I can sure validate the opportunity and the potential for this to be a truly world-class investment. So at the end of the day, we're only 14 holes into the project. We've only announced 6, and within our 6, we found our first plus kilo intercept. So things are looking really good to proving this out to be world-class.
John?
Peter, there's been a lot of press about the political situation in Peru lately. Taking it down a level, what's the reception you've received from the local communities in relation to your projects?
So great question, as it is current headline and news that people get frightened about. And really when it comes to an exploration company, we're not really at risk of losing anything royalties or taxes. But on a social side, with our flagship project, Curabaya, we only have one community that we deal with, and they are extremely positive and see the implications for their quality of life if Curabaya does become the next producing mine in this area. So it's been very favorable. We work with the community almost on a weekly basis to ensure that all their needs are met. As a part of the ESG, checkbox, social is huge in Peru. As we know, further north in Peru, they're going through some rough times with protests in some anti-mining regions, but we have received nothing but blessings, literally shamans blessing our drill program, so it's been really, really well received.
Thank you.
Okay. And now if I can just go and move along and go in.
Basically cutting to the chase, I share the same view. It's more of an observation just on the market cap being quite big. My question, though, which is something that is a testament to your team and the people supporting you, and I get that. You have a lot of channel samples, a lot of, obviously you have what you would call a discovery hole there, et cetera. 14 of 16 holes to come. I guess my question is, when are those holes coming? And are you finding there's a correlation between the grab samples, the channel sampling, and actually the drilling? And to the extent that you could comment on that, because I think really that's probably the opportunity here.
Absolutely. So let me answer the first part. When are these results coming? So Peru was especially hit hard by COVID. And the country was at mercy of this for a long time, and it really slowed everything down as far as workforce and just general safety. But really one thing that we noticed with the lab turnaround time, for 2 years we would send in samples and they would have a 2-week turnaround time. And then when COVID hit, the country actually seized and commandeered all the oxygen from all the labs to help with their hospital situation, health situation. Obviously safety comes and health is a priority over drill results. So we've noticed, quite a backlog with results coming back. So we're going to have, we've released our first 6 holes. We're going to have assays back trickling out over the next few months, as well as further channel samples from Curabaya and Hurricane. We have to make sure that our investors are made well aware. We've done a phenomenal job, and I think no real company has rivaled us when we say we're living this meter by meter with our shareholders. We've opened up the kimono a little bit, so to speak, and let them along for the ride. So they are very in tune with what we're doing. And as far as the rock samples and the channel sampling is concerned, we followed a great procedure. We started off with these bonanza-grade rock samples. We followed it up with the channel sampling. We identified 5 major feeder structures in our zone, all emanating from a diatreme dome complex. And so as we follow along these 5 feeder structures, drilling shallow, short holes, we want to get results back to the shareholders fast, back to the public fast, and we want to make intercepts directly under these channel samples. So they are related, and we're learning more every single hole, as this project has never before been drilled before. So,
George?
Hi, Peter.
Hi.
I'm going to cheat. I've got two questions. When I sped read your slides, it said something about fully permitted. What are you fully permitted to do is question one. And question two is, how much cash have you got at the moment? Do you need the 5 million from me?
Okay, excellent. So fully permitted would be referring to our Curabaya project down south. We have our FTA permit, which allows us to have 20 pads, 2 holes per pad.
Okay.
We are currently in the middle of applying for a DIA, that will allow us to have an additional 40 pads and up to 200 more holes. The reason why we're expanding, obviously, is our 5th feeder structure that we identified with the channel sampling up north in the Kabaya is where we found that 20 meters of 300 grams per ton silver. So we really wanted to incorporate that into our next drill plan come April. And your second question, we have $5 million in our treasury, which should last us through till Q2 of next year.
Thank you.
I'm just going to allow one quick question from Mark Tyler.
Well, I mean, Peter, I think it's just an extension of George's question. How long do you think you'll need to carry on spending money in this environment in order to be able to get an inferred resource, for instance?
Good question. I mean, right now, currently, we have 1 diamond drill rig on site. And I wish I could tell you the drilling is going exceptionally fast. Once we get a firm grip on identifying these feeder structures, identifying the resource, I will pump my own tires and say I came up with the saying amongst our geologists. I said, diamond drill to learn and RC to earn. So once we get a firm grip on what's there, we'll bring in the RC rigs and start poking some holes to expedite the process. So I still believe that we're probably another 24 months out before we see any sort of talk of a resource estimate.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Your time is up. So we can have a round of applause for Peter. Fantastic presentation. And actually, just while I'm inviting our next speaker up until the stage, we're going to go and serve our hungry investor judges with another glass of wine.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
Drink up,
Yeah.
Fine.
Talk to me.
I've got one, actually.
Beer, please.
Beer?
right. Our next contestant is Kevin Brewer, who is President and CEO of CMC Metals. And hopefully, Kevin's slides are coming up on the screen now.
I'm good, mate.
And your 3 minutes starts now.
Good day. I'm one of the most undervalued stocks in this room here today, and I'm going to tell you why. Forward-looking statements. Here we are. We're an opportunity to get into the ground floor on this project, and while my lovely wife has bribed the judges with beautiful-looking rocks that grade about 50 ounces ton silver, about 60% lead, and about a couple of ounces of zinc. And she also bribed them with a bit of paper. So we're going to talk about that. But our average grade assets are focused in a silver district that's comparable to Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. And it's a new emerging silver belt in Yukon, northern British Columbia, called Rancheria Silver District. We've got 5 properties there. I'm going to quickly talk about 1 or 2 of them. We're going to advance the flagship property to PEA stage and take a couple other projects in that belt to drill ready stage. Our valuations, we're at 10 cents today. Our valuations before this exploration season were at 25 and 40 cents. So guys, buy us, and we should be in the 30 to 40 cent range. We're a results-oriented company, and we put money into the ground. We went in there and flew the property last year, flew all 5 targets. This is a beautiful view of the conductivity. We came out with 8 targets at Silver Heart. We then went in to verify those targets with soils, and we've found that all the anomalies sit exactly where we want them to be in the contact between the batholith and the sediments. Perfect setting, and that's where all those occurrences in that belt occur. So we're getting beautiful results. Here's a site. We've been focusing our efforts just drilling in the main zone, which has been the focus of the area for the past 35 years. However, we've expanded the footprint on this property by 1,000% or more. And you can see that we're producing some lovely results. 813 grams of silver, 0.16 copper, 1.6 lead, and 7.89% zinc over 10.8 meters, including 2.3 meters of almost 6,000 grams of ton silver, and 34% zinc and 10% lead. Guys, that's really juicy. So here we are. Here's our next project. It's only 8 kilometers away from a mine mill complex owned by Kerr Mining. It's got a non-43-101 compliant resource of 79,000 tons, grading 790 grams a ton silver equivalent. Guys, I wasn't kidding you. These are very high-grade assets. We're going to make them go. We're going to put money in the ground in these projects and advance them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Fantastic presentation. Let's give him a round of applause. And let's turn to yourself, Mark. What did you think?
Well, Kevin, could I just ask, I'm a bit geographically challenged, what does the infrastructure look like around it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I don't take on a project that's not road accessible. So in Yukon and northern British Columbia, you got to really watch it. Otherwise, your costs can double if you're not road accessible. All my properties are road accessible properties. And actually, Silverknife and Amy are on a road, on the mine road to Silvertip. And then the Silverheart one, we're 43 kilometers off the Yukon-Alaska Highway.
George?
Great presentation. Thanks, Kevin. So my question, the juicy hole that you described to us, what sort of depth is that at? I didn't see that on the slide. So.
Oh, sorry. I didn't put it up. It's about 70 meters, but the veins occur right at surface. So we were drilling down dip on those sequences, and they are matching everything in terms of trenches or any channels we've done or any surface sampling we've done.
Great, thank you.
Robert?
I'll sort of adopt a rapid fire on you on this one a little bit, but I mean, there's a lot of interesting projects here, but as an investor looking at this, I guess my question is, what's the center of gravity of the company in terms of your highest priority? Because you've got Yukon, you've got BC, you've got some stuff in Newfoundland, et cetera. And I guess the second question, which is related to where your focus is how much cash do you currently have?
Okay, our focus is clearly Silverheart.
Right.
We're going to take Amy and Silverknife to drill ready stage, and then joint venture it.
Right.
We went out on the market this year for joint venture groups. They've come back and said, take it to drill ready stage, and we're in. So that's what we'll do, and we can do that literally under 250 grand to take those projects to drill ready stage. And our Newfoundland projects, they're early stage, so we won't spend a whack of bucks looking at them, but they're very interesting. They're in the Gander zone. They're not Newfound gold, but they certainly have very interesting high-grade polymetallic samples in outcrops at this point.
And current cash? Sorry, that was the second.
Oh, the cash is around $1 million, so I got enough to do that without any drilling at Silverheart next year. So if I raise any more money, it'll be my drill fund for Silverheart.
For Silverheart. Thank you.
John?
Rob's kindly set up a nice segue for my question in that I like the fact you've got multiple assets, you're not just a sole asset company. You've highlighted that Silverheart is the priority. Can you give us a little bit more colour as to Amy, the plans you have for that? You've just touched upon you want to get that drill ready. You envisage that will be about 250,000. Can you give us some idea as to how many metres you're looking at, the duration, term, etc.?
Yeah, well, right now we're going to be compiling data. It's got a ton of data back from the 1970s and 80s. It hasn't been touched since. So I know, for example, we got over 300,000 feet of geochem data. I also know I got 2 adits in there. I got tons of trenches, none of it's compiled, none of the drilling is modeled. So we're going to do all that over this winter and get that straightened away. It's in a limestone. It looks stacked like the Silvertip mine that Kerr owned, only 8 kilometers away. We're in a limestone, and it looks just like a carbonate replacement deposit. So that's the target, and we're pretty sure that that's going to be the case.
Thank you.
Richard?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you very much for that little sample. I'm going to give it to my little nephew over here who's keen on geology. That's great. My dad used to throw rocks like this around. This is very heavy. What percentage do you own of the company? Very important to know what skin in the game you've got, number one. What's your target resource, ounces silver? And what's your expected average grade?
Okay, I've got skin in the game. I've got 4% of the company myself. We've got probably 3 other investors with similar levels of investment, and the rest is spread through the market. We've changed our shareholdings quite significantly over the past year, because we used to have a chairman that used to have about 40% of the company. He's no longer involved in the company. And then with regards to, what was the second question, sorry?
Target resource for ounces and average grade.
The target resource at Silver Heart would be about 50 million silver equivalent ounces. That would make it probably in the economic range. We're at 7.5 million silver equivalent ounces right now, and we're going to probably put out another resource estimate in the first quarter of 2022. We're just trying to signal to the market that we're growing the resource and we're heading in the right direction. And then when we start hitting these bigger targets, that we can get to that 50 million silver equivalent ounces range. With the others, it's just a matter of developing a resource, because you got to mine and mill there. So we want to find the resources and see if we got an economic thing where we'll just mine it and sell it to the mine gate.
Average grade?
Well, the average grade right now at Amy was 790 grams a ton silver equivalent. So
it's pretty good.
You know, if we keep up that grade, we'll be very happy, of course.
Yep.
We can get time for a few more questions. John, do you have one?
Actually, yeah. What's the position you have with the First Nation communities near to the projects?
It's kind of strange, actually, because they do know a lot about us. We have been hiring their employees, their people. We have been hiring their equipment companies. But the Casca First Nation is pretty busy with a pending mine project and a couple other larger projects in the area. So it's really hard to get their attention. The word I get from the background in the community is that they're generally happy with us, and there's no big issues. But they're not engaging right now.
Okay.
And time for one quick question from Rob.
Having been to the Yukon myself, it's beautiful up there. I love it. But it's really, as an investor thinking about it, it's really accessible about 4 months of the year. And when I did go up, it was in a helicopter. So I guess my question is, what's the season up there? And is it basically, is it going to be crickets for 8 months while the weather sets in? I mean,
I call it 100 days, and every day means a percent to the project. So because we're at the 5,000 foot level. It was part of the reason of diversifying into Newfoundland, so that we could have a longer season and pick up a few projects that we didn't have to put a lot of money into, but at the same time could extend our season. So that's part of the reason of running the Newfoundland.
I think we have to say that time is up there, to be fair to everyone else. So a huge round of applause once again for Kevin Brewer. Thank you very much. We'd like to go and take your seat. And now on to our third contestant, who's joining us live via the wonders of Zoom. So hopefully, come up screen, we're going to see Nick Appleyard, CEO of Tristar Gold, and hopefully Nick's slides will be able to come up, and he will have 3 minutes as well. So Nick, if you can hear us, best of luck, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite for the investor pitch today. And it did get me thinking, why would such an esteemed group invest in a company like Tristar? And obviously I started thinking about maybe it's because of our board of directors. We have a great board of people who can choose which companies they'd like to go on, like an ex-head analyst at Canaccord, COO of $1 billion corporation, an ex-auditor as our chair of our audit committee. I mean, what more could you want? But on its own, that's not a good enough reason to invest in a company. So maybe we look at the institutions that have invested in Tristar. RBC, US Global being our biggest shareholder. Oh, things are going quicker than they should have done. Is there any way we can go back there? And our shareholders there. Maybe you like to be aligned with the insiders and associates. We own about 25% of the company. Or maybe you like to follow the big corporations like Royal Gold, who come in and do a lot of due diligence and then make an investment into a corporation, banking on the fact that they're going to make money when this large-scale operation goes into production. So there's a whole lot of reasons there someone might come in and look at this company. But but let's probably still not enough to make an investment. So let's have a look a little bit further. Maybe at resources, we have 700,000 ounces of inferred in gold resources, 1.8 million ounces of indicated. This has been growing, really nicely over the last few years. From when I took over, we had less than 300,000 ounces, and obviously now it's got to 0.7 plus 1.8 under 43.101. I'm not allowed to add those two numbers together, but I'm sure you guys can. But we, do, as management, believe and understand this deposit, believe there's still quite a lot more here that we can uncover, but every CEO says that, so we need to look a little bit further. Maybe we should look at our pre-feasibility study we just published. From that resource base, we have now got 1.4 million ounces in mineral reserves, annual projected gold production of 120,000 ounces a year, but more importantly probably, phase one, the first 6 years, 150,000 ounces a year. In great economics, a lot of good numbers there, but again, is that enough on its own to make an investment decision? I don't think it is. They're all great numbers and there's a lot more to do there, but we still need to look at the other issues, the permitting, the location of this project. We're in Pará State, Brazil, the major mining jurisdiction there. We're not just in a great mining jurisdiction with a state government that's pro-mining, we're really the best location in that state, next to the highway, next to the power line, with a very supportive community. And on the Brazil side, we need to support Brazil. We need to support them in areas where they need to develop assets to keep them out of the Amazon. So we look at all of this and think that all the work, the ESG that we're doing, is that a good enough reason to go in and invest in Tristar? It probably still isn't. Why you would invest in Tristar is for one reason and one reason only. It's because you're going to make money on your investment. And you make money because the stars align with all of these things put together, only come together in one project, Castelo de Sonhos and Tristar Gold. Thank you very much. I think I made the three.
Wow, that presentation was spot on 3 minutes. So yeah, definitely a round of applause for that. George, will the stars align for you?
Thanks, Nick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, yes.
Okay, great. I'm glad you got to the point of where the project is and stuff like that with 45 seconds to go, because I followed the rules, so I didn't do any reading at all before we sat down. Great presentation, though, thank you. Tell me about Royal Gold. Are they in because they have a royalty or a stream, or what's the background there, please?
They came in 2 years ago on the back of our scoping study and bought a 1.5% NSR royalty for $8 million US. And sort of requested that we use that to get to the next major milestone, which was a pre-feasibility study.
Okay, sorry, just say that again. 1.5% royalty, did you say?
NSR.
Yep.
And they paid $8 million US for it.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
What sort of grade and what sort of operating costs do you estimate you're going to have for this, all-in costs?
Reserve grade's about 1.1 grams a tonne. Our all-in sustaining cost was around $900 an ounce. I think we're very lucky on the operating costs. We went for, I'm trying to think of it now, but it's, I always think of the dollars per ounce, because that's the critical one to the market. So it's $900 an ounce. I think we're about $40 a gram to operate. It costs about $2.70 a tonne to own and operate mine. We're around $10 a tonne to process, and a couple of bucks a G&A in those round numbers.
Okay, thank you for that. Richard?
That's really interesting. I've got a question for you. Okay, so you're 1.1 grams per tonne. Magic number's normally about 2 grams. That's $60 a tonne revenue, assuming you get 100% recovery. How much is it per tonne to process? The whole lot? That's the total?
I think the processing cost was $866 if I remember offhand. We do get 98% recovery.
No, I mean total operating cost per tonne.
Total operating cost is, I can get that very quickly, but I can't get that very quickly. $27 a tonne.
Okay.
John?
Nick, thanks for the presentation. A big theme of the conference has been ESG. You've touched upon it lightly during your 3 minutes. Keen to better understand, given the proximity of the asset in the jurisdiction, can you shed us a little bit more light as to the ESG position of the company as to, what policies or committees or anything you might have in place?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do take it very seriously. We have an ESG or sustainability committee at a board level, and we also have a vice president of sustainability who works directly and reports to that committee. And I think we sort of adopt the philosophy that as a first world company, we need to go in and help Brazil develop assets in areas where they should be developing them, and that's the way we can help them stay out of the areas they shouldn't be. I mean, I'm aghast at what happens in the Amazon sometimes, but I do find it a bit harsh if people say to Brazil, oh, you can't do that if you don't give them an alternative to make a living. So I think we offer that alternative for them to responsibly develop assets in farming country where they're not destroying pristine environment and aid staying out of the Amazon. So I think our ESG is sort of focused on that. The best practices where we can, but there's the alternative on that helps people stay out of the Amazon as well.
Thank you.
Rob?
So I got a couple of quick questions. You had it in the previous slide, but what's the after-tax MPV of the project? And I think you said it was a 326 million capex. Is that correct?
It was 320 million was the MPV after tax.
Right.
The capex was 260 million.
260 million. And I guess the follow-up to that is, cost inflation in the mining sector right now is, like all inflation in the world right now. How recent is that number one? And I guess, do you expect that capex to go up given the input prices and given the global supply chain issues we're all seeing? So.
No, that's an October number, so that's recent. We published that in October this year. I will say that doing that pre-feasibility study, the hardest part of that study under the COVID world we're living in was getting that capex cost estimation correct. But I would consider it a very, very current number.
Right, thank you.
Nick, just a quick one. Obviously, key thing for investors is people, project, price. So I was told that a long time ago, the 3 Ps. Who are the people in the company, and have they got any experience building projects in Brazil?
We have, as far as a board of directors, Carlos Valenia is our sort of main Brazilian component on the board. He's the head legal partner of Pinheiro Neto, is the largest law firm there. As far as building mines in Brazil, no. I did a management takeover of the company about 6 years ago with a development team to develop it through to feasibility, fully permitted. We will need another team to come in post that phase.
Okay, any more John?
One more P-related question. Permits. Where are you with respect to the permits for the project?
Okay, having just completed our pre-feasibility study, that now has allowed us to do our impacts analysis, which is being done as we speak. We have to do a little bit more wet season flora and fauna, which is being done now. It's the wet season down there now. And we will be filing our EIA REMA, as they call it in Brazil, in April, and we expect a 12, 18-month timeline for the preliminary license.
Thank you.
Feasibility study, what's the plans for that?
To be done in parallel with the preliminary license.
And who's going to badge that, and what's it going to cost you, and how much cash have you got?
That's the big question. We've got $6 million in cash right now, which is not enough for the feasibility study. So those are the discussions we're having internally, and what the $5 million will go towards.
And you haven't decided who would do it?
Not yet. I've got a preferred name in my mind, but I don't want to give it away since I'm still on negotiate.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was and thank you very much, Nick, for actually dialing in all the way from Canada. Can we please give Nick a huge round of applause? And now, last but no means least, we should have Alex Langer, Chief Executive Officer of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Alex, I think I can see you, but hopefully you can hear us, and hopefully you're able to go and share your slides. And okay, I can see your slides are up here on the screen. So wishing you the very best of luck. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you so much. Thanks for including me all the way from Vancouver. Sierra Madre Gold and Silver is an exploration and future development company that is focused on acquiring high value and quick to production precious metal assets in Western Mexico. Sierra Madre started trading on the TSX Venture Exchange in April of this year. To date, we have acquired 2 projects. The first being Thake. We acquired 100% of the Thake project from the main principal of Cream Minerals about 4 years ago while we were private. Cream in its heyday had a market cap of over $150 million. But more importantly, they spent about $20 million on the project itself, including 31,000 meters of drill core, which we have, and a bunch of met work, which came out quite positive. Thake has had a number of historic NI 43-101 resource reports on the project, the 2 most recent being one of over 18 million ounces of silver equivalent, and the other 18 million ounces of 10 and 18 million ounce silver equivalent, just depending on which cutoff grade you wanted to use. The split in value is about 70% silver and 30% gold. Historically, there was 3.5 kilometers of strike length at Thake. From our work programs, we've now identified over 12 kilometers of strike length, which has really increased our resource potential. In June and July of this year, we initiated a 20-hole confirmation drilling program. Some of those results were really quite encouraging. You can see some of the numbers there. But more importantly and more interesting to us is we discovered 6 new zones, all from surface to the known historic mineralization. The previous operators were always, I guess, cash conscious and didn't assay until they received positive visuals within the core. Finding these new zones should allow for an open cut mining scenario, at least to start. Also in July of this year, we acquired the La Tigra project from Grupo Mexico. Grupo Mexico is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. We are absolutely thrilled to have been able to acquire La Tigra. It took a while, actually it took about 2 years, but we feel the potential really is truly excellent. I know Greg Liller, our Chief Operating Officer and Executive Chairman, has had his eye on this project for quite a while. Historically, La Tigra has been in and out of production for about 100 years, last in production in the early 90s. The head grade at that time was over 10.5 grams gold and over 350 grams silver. It's never seen any modern exploration techniques, no trenching, let alone a drill hole. Corporately, our 3 to 5 year goal is to have 50 to 100 million ounces of silver under inventory, as well as production from 2 to 3 mines, utilizing a centralized facility similar to a hub and spoke mining scenario, something that's modular to start with a lower capex that can grow as new projects come online or as our current projects increase in production. For $11 million in cash, right now, management itself and the other founders are actually well over 40% holders as we've been buying actively in the market.
Okay, can we have a round of applause for Alex for a fantastic presentation? Mark.
Sorry, Alex, you broke up a little bit at the end. You were talking about getting into production from a hub and spoke model. Is that likely in the short term, or is that going to take years to get?
Yeah, it's going to take most likely 2 to 3 years, realistically, unless we do acquire something in production in the near term. We do have capital set aside for acquisition. There are avenues that can go quicker, the number of mills and processing facilities within the area, so we can move fast, depending. But with our current projects, we feel we can be in production within 2 to 3 years.
Alex, that's great. I do want to have a chat to you afterwards because I'm an investor in Alien Metals and it's got a project in Zacatecas in Mexico. How far is it from Zacatecas? You mentioned $150 million valuation. Your market cap's $32 million, so I don't know how that works. And your current resource, what's that?
Yes, great question. So we're not too far from Zacatecas. In terms of transportation, I think you can go up to about 400 kilometers nowadays. Actually, transportation cost, people don't realize, is pretty low, especially for high value ore. So definitely something to look at. Second question, yes, the previous operators, it was a company called Cream Minerals, had the market cap of 150 million. That was during silver's peak and during its heyday, but just goes to show kind of the potential. Our market cap is just under 35 million today, with 11 million in cash. So was there one more question?
The current resource, 18 million, did you say?
Historic resource. Yeah, 18 million was a previous one. That is historic. We're about to launch a drilling campaign, actually at both projects. We haven't quite announced them yet, but they're going to be significant. We're permitted for 47 drill pads at Thake, where we can obviously do more than one drill hole per pad. We're going to be increasing that quite a bit, and we're going to be drilling starting in January all the way through until we've kind of blocked out a resource. Our goal is to get kind of over 20 million ounces. At that point, we'll move right into PEA, actually a pretty aggressive PEA, almost a feasibility level study, and then move towards production. So that should be out, if all goes well, end of quarter 2 of 2022, but if things go really well, that might be pushed into quarter 3. We're not going to stop drilling until we come up with a number that we're quite comfortable with.
Excellent.
John?
You've touched upon the fact that Le Tigre has been in and out of production for a number of years. Twofold question with respect to that. One, why? Ideally, is it to do with management, commodity price, or the asset itself? Two, following up from that, what is it that you would be doing differently which would ensure more stable production?
Great question. So historically, actually at Le Tigre, there was over 5,000 miners. It's amazing. We have our Garimperos and have been, panning our trenches and coming back with just ridiculous grades and ridiculous gold. So that's one of the issues. Second, no one really did proper mining techniques. They just followed these veins. There's 4 levels of underground. We just finished mapping them. Just no modern mining techniques. And then the third issue would have been price of gold during the time. It goes up and down, and no one's put in a large enough facility to really make it operational and longer term.
Rob?
Again, rapid fire to keep consistent. I kind of look at this and I say to myself, it's cheap. You got 11 million in cash, so your EV is around 24 million. You got past production, so that we know it's actually going to work. You got a lot of exploration upside, and I guess I ask myself, it's all about execution here. Are you able to execute? I guess, there's two, and just to dovetail on the previous question, you've got Garimperos and so forth working there. So 2 questions. One, is there any issues in managing them? Are they going to still want to run in and pick away at your at your mine? And then I guess the other question is more broad, is just locally, is there any issues with security and so forth, and is that something you're going to have to manage to pay for?
Great questions, very fair. First off, the Garimperos are there, and we actually hired the majority of them. They're much better finding gold than our geologists, to be honest, and they've been wonderful. They're mining as we speak right now, but it's small. I think about 900 kilograms every 2 weeks is what they're processing. And if we can't deal with that, we don't have a mine anyway. So it's a small amount comparing to what we're actually looking at. Fortunately enough, in Mexico, we're in some really good locations. Thake is 3 kilometers from a main road. We have no other issues in terms of narcos or anything like that in the area. We're 20 minutes from a city of 500,000 people. There's an airport there. There's actually a railhead owned by Grupo Mexico. So infrastructure is phenomenal. There's actually power to the site. At Thake, we're actually 9 kilometers from a paved road. It's a well-known, again, mining area, mining community. So in terms of infrastructure, we're really quite set with our locations. And that's one thing we have been looking at. We don't want to be in the middle of Sierra Madres where you're 6-7 hours from anywhere. We really, truly are fortunate in terms of the location and what's around us.
Hi there, Alex. What's your plan for 2022 budget-wise? How much are you going to spend of the 11? What are you going to be left with at the end, and what's it going to get us? What are we going to see at the end of 22?
Exactly. So, great question. So we budgeted about 5 million for drilling at both Thake and Le Tigre. At Thake, that should give us 150 to 200 drill holes, as well as an updated NI 43-101 resource report. And then also at Le Tigre, if all goes well, that should give us an actual discovery. We're quite excited. We have released some positive trenching results, and so we could have a discovery and an NI 43-101 resource report by the middle of 2022. From there, we still have $6 million left in the bank, and to push on into engineering work or to a next phase of drilling, whatever is necessary at the time.
Great.
Time for one more question.
And what's your corporate burn rate?
It's quite low. So in Mexico right now, with all the trenching, it's 150,000 US a month, and that's including some amazing results. In Vancouver, we're about 40,000 a month. So really, really quite low. Again, I'm the largest shareholder. I own well over 5 million shares. My family is closer to 8 million. So we're fully invested, that's for sure. So keeping the cost down is quite important. We're trying to push the company forward towards production. So every penny we do pinch pretty well.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A. So can we give me a warm round of applause once again to Alex Langer, Chief Executive Officer of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Well, I think we've had 4 fantastic projects, and we've all been given a really good grilling by our investor judges. And now the most key question is, who's going to win the virtual $1 million? And even more important than that, who's actually going to win the actual real-life bottle of champagne, which I should add is sponsored by Dundee Goodman, and obviously allow Rob Dixon to go and hand over the award to the lucky winner. So I'm now going to ask...
If it's virtual, I'll take care of it for the rest of the event.
I'm sure you will, Rob. If you can have happened to vote for Sierra Madre or Tristar Gold, we can have may go and call foul. But
exactly.
Anyway, we'll see how the voting goes. I'm going to go from this side of me, and I'm going to go all the way to the other side. So first, can I please turn to Mark Tyler, London representative of Auramet Trading. Out of the projects presented, which was the most investable if you had $1 million to give, and why? You can give it to one project, or you can split your vote into 2 to $500,000 each. Don't do thirds, because I only have a maths B grade O level, so it'd be too difficult.
Thanks very much. I think we've seen two different kinds of projects presented here. Some spectacularly interesting early stage projects, and some probably less upside, but closer to development. I'm at that age where I'm very superstitious about the longevity of any sort of boom. And so I would tend to look for a project that's going to get into production sooner rather than later. And I would, in spite of the lovely Galena sample I have, I would give my $1 million to Nick from Tristar.
Okay, so that's one vote for Tristar Gold. Next, George, who would you give your money to and why?
Okay, thanks very much. Good presentations, guys. Well done. Although I'm a Star Wars fan, and so I like the Lego in the background, I'm afraid Alex doesn't get my money because I'm a bit concerned about Mexico personally. I think that Nick's presentation was great, but Tristar's probably a bit too far advanced for me. I'm looking for a really good bang for my buck in the next year. And so on the basis of sheer energy levels, bribery, and excitement in Yukon, Kevin gets my vote.
Okay, so that's one vote for CMC Metals. Next, Rob.
I'm actually going to make it life difficult and split my vote. And to the 2 gentlemen that are on virtually, and it's really not because I want to carry around a bottle of Moe tonight, but I may have to do that. I think, in the case of Nick, we got a development project. And I think I probably would have leaned towards it, but I worry a little bit about the cost escalation, and I worry a little bit about the current situation that may just drag things out and may just make it a little more expensive. So, but that being said, you're looking at 2.5 million ounces. Development project looks very reasonable, and you're not an expensive company. So for that reason, we're dealing with a known quantity. Nick gets my half vote for that, and Alex. As I kind of mentioned in my question, you're 35 million market cap with 11 million in cash. You're cheap. There's some execution risk there. I'm a little more comfortable with Mexico than perhaps others, but you've got a lot of runway in front of you. You've got to drill it off and really make it happen. But I think you can get there, and if you are able to really increase that ounce count materially, there's a big re-rating ahead of you. The other thing that I really like, if I'm not mistaken, you're about a 40%. Well, you and the insiders are about a 40% owner of the company, and that's a huge thing for us. We always like to see people with skin in the game and are kind of wearing it one way or the other. So, with that, that's my votes. Andrew, to do the math for it, make it a little more difficult for you.
So I think I can just about deal with halves. That's great. Okay, so it's a quite close battle so far. So John Zadkovich from Kingseed, who are you going to give your money to?
Gents, all very good presentations, and each of your companies have very impressive projects. to make Andrew's job a little bit easier, I'm following in the footsteps of Rob. I don't know how good Andrew's math is. I'm just going to put it to the test anyway. But the rationale, Nick, I'm particularly impressed with the ESG position of the company there. You briefly touched upon the fact as to not encroaching on the forests in Brazil and also the amount of resource the company is devoting to ESG. So that wins 500 for me. And Alex, Le Tigre, I like the fact it has been in production. I'm a little bit more conservative. I like to see some, runs on the board, as it were, to give some certainty as to the future of the project, and also enables one to look back and see what's gone wrong and how that can be remedied, and you're obviously across that. So I'm split 50-50 for those two gentlemen.
Okay, so just confirm 50-50 between Tristar and Sierra Madre, yeah?
Correct.
Right. Last but by no means least, Richard Shemesian from Bennelong. Who are you going to give your money to?
Jeez, this is pretty tough. Look, Peter, I mean, everyone forgot about Peter. I thought his presentation was really good. I think you've done a good job there. Market cap's a bit high for me, 113. You had a good run on the silver by the looks of things. Kevin, I mean, what can I say? I mean, that sample is just brilliant. That's just, I love that. I love that. And you're cheap, 9 million, a lot of upside, and I like the rock. Nick, look, ESG is important, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to make money. So you could go call the ESG to the cows come home, but do you make money? And to me, 1 grams per tonne, it's a bit skinny for me, and it's Brazil, and I don't understand Bolsonaro and Brazil. Alex, love it. Again, the Star Wars figurines, that's the key for me. I think we can work together. I feel the energy. You own 40%.
I feel the force.
I feel the force. 40% ownership, love it. As Rob's pointed out, EV24, $11 million cash. I want to do a deal with you. But I'm going to give half to Kevin because I think he's a good bloke and his wife's lovely, and half to you, Alex, because we're going to do some business in Zacatecas with alien metals. Call me later.
So the Star Wars figures obviously was a sort of like a big sort of thing in Alex's favour. But if my maths is correct, we had a very, very close contest, a very narrow winner by half a point. A warm round of applause to Nick Appleyard, CEO of Tristar Gold. Rob will be hand-delivering that bottle of champagne to you.
Nick, I'll keep it in my flat in Toronto, and when you're through, we'll break it out.
But
okay, or anytime down in Scottsdale.
Well, actually, I must say, Jonathan has a home there, and he will be. I'll mention that. Maybe you guys can get together.
I think that all that leaves me to do is to go and thank the judges, also go and thank all 4 contestants. I thought all their pitches were really great. Thank you to Dundee Goodman for sponsoring the pitch battles. Actually, thank you to all the sponsors for this week, and thank you to everyone for turning up through obviously everything that's kind of gone on over the last sort of few days. This is now the end of Minds and Money London 2021, but we hope to all see you again in 2022. Hope you all have a safe trip home. Thank you very much.